Wired versus wireless video. Does anyone have a video of the video of Bulldog explanation of wired versus wireless? Trying to prove a point at the moment. Sure. Wired versus wireless mouse. You Google this or YouTube it. You click here. Linus Tech Tip. Or we can take a new one as well. We'll take two sources. Scroll. The good testing.
Contact. GeForce RTX. We figured. However, is determine whether any of the mice that were found are different on this.
Okay, let's see how they do
it. That means research at 4K 1000 frames per second. So that means every frame here is just 1 millisecond. Now, you might think that to get a precise measurement for each mouse, we could just move the mouse around with our arms and then count the frame delay.
Yeah.
But not so. At 1000 frames per second, any organic body is gonna have too much give to get a clear start point. Yeah. So we had to get a little bit more creative. Meet Norm, so named for its two not-or gates. With Alex's creation here, we can swing a hammer at the mouse, and with these conductive surfaces on the backs of our mice and on the tip of our hammer, we can record the exact moment of contact with the indicator LED that's on this breadboard here. That removes the reliability of our measurements dramatically, and it's pretty fun to do. For our first round of testing, we're gonna keep things simple. We're gonna take one of Logitech's high-performance wired mice, so this is their new generation MX518 with their Hero sensor, and we're gonna put it head-to-head against one of their high-performance wireless mice, in this case, the G703. So we're gonna do the wired one first because the conventional wisdom would go that that's your baseline, right? First run, MX518.
Dumb people say it's faster.
Fantastic. Wow, that's a really short delay. Our first run with the MX518 taught us a couple of things. Number one is that we could expect, with a wired mouse anyway, about 15 milliseconds of latency, according to our measurements, and that we could expect a high degree of consistency. One other key takeaway was that the creation of the apparatus to light up the LED when the hammer hits the back of the mouse was entirely unnecessary. As it turns out, using difference mode in Premiere to examine 2 frames, we could more easily identify the true starting point for our mouse movement. I am fascinated by this test.
We really have to get the actual milliseconds. This is really interesting. That seems like a really big distance before it actually registers. That doesn't seem right.
We're not making the rules here. It is what it is. Now, one special thing that we're making sure to do here is we're putting the dongle right here above the table to ensure that it's not subject to any unfair interference. First wireless mouse test, here we go. With the G703 wireless, we weren't quite sure what to expect. Logitech claims the performance should be basically the same, but our common sense tells us that it couldn't possibly be, especially with respect to performance consistency, because wireless is far more susceptible to interference than a wired connection. Well, as it turns out, within the margin of error of our experiment, they were the same. Wow.
That actually looked a bit faster, but I might just be crazy.
Not only did we learn that our wireless mouse, we also saw the next mice. We've got the rig set up anyway, we figured, why not investigate some other manufacturers' mice? So we're gonna start with Corsair's Dark Core RGB SE. We chose this one because it's Corsair's sort of equivalent sub 1 millisecond latency mouse, and we wanted to know how their claims stack up. Corsair's Dark Core RGB SE was an interesting one for us. It was still within the margin of error of our experiment, just as fast as both of the Logitech mice, but when we averaged our results, it did measure a little bit slower. The next thing we wanted to find out on our voyage of discovery today was whether it actually matters if a mouse can be set to 1000 hertz polling rate. So the Final Mouse Ultralight Sunset has a bit of a bad reputation for being capped out at 500 hertz. Does it matter? Only one way to know. mice, it was
Doesn't matter.
learning equipment. Logitech MX Anywhere to tell. We're not done yet though. For our last test, we pulled out a Logitech MX Anywhere 2 mouse. This is by no means a piece of gaming equipment, but it gives us a great point of comparison for all the high performance gaming mice that we've looked at so far. Well, this was a great lesson for gamers everywhere. If you want to have the best, most responsive experience, you're gonna want to choose a gaming mouse. It was over double the average response time of all of our gaming grade mice. And
But that's
making
enough
matters
as mouse,
worse,
it doesn't matter.
that's with Logitech's 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection rather than Bluetooth,
That's-
which is different.
That's an office one. To make sure, we'll just take another one. This is a new one.
Click latency
Now watch this
is
yet.
here, including a bunch of other factors in the chain as well. But since those are constant, we'll be able to measure the difference between the changing
Did it do it proper? Here we go.
mouse click and the microphone at short polling rates here to see how much this will impact the following tests. This is the sampling my light 2, so not this wireless. I think the first thing that I want to point out here is the fact that there is in fact a measurable difference here. It's not just as simple as they're all the same. If we take a look at the
write if
bottom
they're
of the
wireless
stack
or
at
not?
28.7 milliseconds of latency versus what's better to go with for lower latency.
There you go, it's the
Both
same.
have good
It's
and
the same.
average performers. Also, it turns out that Razer
There you have it, chat. So we've been over this a million times now. You are wrong. You're stupid.